actually like the city quite a lot at the weekends when no one's here. I don't actually ever know what the video is going to be about when I wake up. It just sort of happens while I'm reading shit on the train. But as soon as I got off the train this morning, I knew exactly where I was going. I went on a little escapade earlier on, which I'll show you soon. But let me first start off as a form of introduction to the topic, read out just a little bit of a mainstream media article about something weird going on. Okay, this is from the London Bilderberg Standard. It says, Ledbury Estate tower blocks could have collapsed, killing lots of people, housing experts say. 4 tower blocks on a South London estate being evacuated over safety fears they could have collapsed, killing lots of people, a housing expert has said. The Bilderberg Standard loves using the word expert. Veteran housing consultant Tony Bird said the construction systems used at the Ledbury estate near Old Kent Road mean if one concrete panel blew out, large parts of the building would collapse. They're really crap at writing at the Evening Standard. What the hell does that mean, blow out? They're talking about the possibility of a gas explosion. He said if a fire started in the blocks, flames and toxic fumes would shoot right through the towers, owing to a litany of gaping holes and cracks. Residents living at 224 homes in the 13-storey tower blocks in Peckham have been told they must move out in the coming weeks after structural engineers found they were potentially unsafe during investigations carried out in the wake of the Grenfell fire. Southwark Council said it's not willing to take any risks after an investigation revealed the buildings could be unsafe. So that really piqued my interest. In fact, enough, seeing as I had a couple of hours off this morning, I thought, hell, let's go to Peckham. Tell you all you need to know about the kind of place I'm in. Oh my god, what the hell is that? That is weird. I'm in Peckham, which is a lovely place to come for your lunch break. There's something interesting actually. I'm going up to the towers just up here, but there's something interesting here called Caroline Gardens Chapel, and apparently it was one of London's first sort of benevolence homes for the poor to save, well, apparently in the Victorian era, if you sort of retired, or rather you weren't earning any money and you were a burden on everybody, they would chuck you in the workhouse and they'd just work you to death and not really pay you very well. And to save people from that, certain benevolent figures who were of course signed up members of the lodge, as in Prince Albert, and at the time the Duke of Sussex, they decided to build what they called the asylum. But it wasn't a mental asylum, but the fact that in the Victorian era they were obsessed with technology, and they called a benevolent home for the elderly an asylum. Kind of makes you think maybe they were testing people with stuff. It's so inspiring around here, you know. Uber inspiring. It's just so ironic, because of course those things fill up with gas, if you're allowed to use gas. These buildings, however, not allowed, because, well, presumably, a single gas explosion in any of these rooms could bring the whole thing down. Holy shit. How bizarre this is. Is it just me? This is so fucking bizarre. I mean, there's an octagon? Hexagon. God. Well,
evidence that the building is falling apart.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it, how long they've been sitting on that, and whether or not they knew it was falling apart, and they knew that there was a chance that it might fall down, and they probably wouldn't care if it fell down. You don't really get the impression around here that they care that much about decor. There are people with officious-looking yellow jackets in there, pointing and measuring and doing all sorts of things. Not exactly sure what they're doing actually, but there's some kind of investigation going on in there, I think. Weird. There's actually something going on up there as well. Look at that. The whole flat sort of been emptied out and filled with scaffold. You wouldn't want to be living in the houses above that, would you? Holy shit. A lot of ways I just wanted to come down here just in case it did blow up or fall down at some time, just to kind of document the thing. A weird environment. I mean, things like this actually I find curiously, I mean, I kind of love that in a way. Just look at that. I see Canary Wharf from here. Quite interesting. No more gas for you. Well, that's all the time I have here. Back to wherever the hell I am. 1968, there was actually an incident where a building of that design suffered a gas explosion, and one half of the building all collapsed and it killed various people. And the regulations were changed after that incident in 1968, but for some reason the buildings there at the Ledbury estate in Peckham are of that design and technically shouldn't have been built, or certainly shouldn't have been fitted out with gas piping. That's what they say. And it's interesting, and actually when you read the mainstream media articles about this, they give you the impression that the council found out about it simply because of the investigation into Grenfell, and they give you the impression that all buildings are being checked. But actually I then subsequently found out that it was actually a single individual in a room in one of those towers that actually pushed the entire movement to get the place evacuated and being fixed and all of that stuff. So it wasn't for an individual doing their own campaign for health and safety. That could have been another Grenfell, not necessarily a fire, but a massive catastrophic event leading to loss of life. A lot of the reactions to this actually have been quite lefty, I mean radically lefty. The thing I'm about to read here is from the World Socialist website, which sounds amazing, doesn't it? But I'll link it in the description. This is a statement from one of the residents, okay? I have not that many cracks in the walls of my flat, not like those that have been reported, but I do have some. Every flat is different and has a different severity. Mine do not seem to be as bad as my neighbour in the other block, who can actually put her hand through the cracks. And that's what kicked off this whole thing. She hired an independent structural engineer after Southwark Council signed off the cracks as safe. She spent her own money to get an independent report carried out. They said, no way are they safe. They wrote a letter to the council and to her, and it was this that sparked off the whole thing on fire safety. As is mentioned in the council letter, it's only because of this resident leading a movement that the whole thing started off. They say actually that the tower was not only susceptible to a possible gas explosion, but even could have structurally failed in high winds. Actually owe their lives to this woman who got an independent health and safety assessment. It's crazy, really, isn't it, when you think about it? So very, very nearly Grenfell. And what it really shows is that in terms of how the poor are managed nowadays, they are disposable. Nobody seems to give a shit. It seems that humans have been given planned obsolescence, while certain classes are being phased out of society.